Now, there's one thing that I really want to get to, because Africa is a place where there's a lot of land grabs going on. 70% of the remaining arable land in the world is in Africa, yet we have challenges of food security. Now, there are many companies and countries and governments coming to Africa, taking huge tracts of land away and saying, and I don't see any fundamental transfer of skills. I don't see sustainable entrepreneurs being built, small-scale farmers being taken out and graduated into being more successful commercial farmers. What are the lessons that we should be looking at in relation to that? Because often when people talk of cooperatives, the farmer feels wrong because it's the middleman that takes it. In this model at Araco, what is the model of value distribution? So if the farmer, if you are selling the coffee production at $6 or $7, how much does the farmer get?
So the value proposition is the last element which really makes the whole model sustainable, frankly. Because that's where the kernel of the ethics is tested. Because finally when profits are created, who gets the profits? That's the question they're waiting for. And in our model, the entire profits go back to the farmer after reducing the costs. And in fact, the farmer cooperatives have come back to us and said, no, up to 10% you can deduct from us. Because there is a lot of effort that you're putting in. Your efforts will not be sustainable if you also do not get a stake out of it. So some of the costs are therefore taken care of with their approval for this purpose. And if it is the wholesale without any investment, the entire money goes back to the farmer itself. And that, in return, we negotiate with the farmer, should be further redistributed not just for consumption, but also for a bit on education, a bit on health, bit on future investments, etc., and which they comply. So that particular aspect is something which we need to lead towards what I would call as a new framework for doing business with farmers itself.
I see this as classic empowerment, because you're not arriving there to say, we will solve, as specialists and experts, your problem. We are transferring skills to people that empower them to solve their own problems, David.
Absolutely critical. And it's basically investing in the farmer. It's that knowledge transfer. And this is one of the keys to organic farming, is you're not bringing a technology from outside. You're basically nurturing a technology in people. And you're investing in them and their capacities. And then explaining and revealing to them that you can create your own fertilizers on your own land with a simple little bit of technology. You can actually do that and get your production year after year, and you can minimize your cost of production. The other model, it maximizes the cost of production at the expense of the farmer.
But also at the expense of the environment and the land. So now,
yeah.
I have this thing, David, which is when I listen to people in the climate change movement, a lot of the language, even I, who have some global expertise and experience, cannot understand. Carbon sequestration and carbon markets. I see organic farming as a way to connect the issues of preserving the environment, our world, at the same time sustainably using the Earth's resources.
Yeah.
So it connects these issues.
I think this is one of the issues. I think this is one of the great scams. It's a bit like the mining scandal of carbon in the soil.
Yes.
It's essentially what they did is they commoditized carbon. They made it into a noun, whereas carbon is actually a verb. It's actually a process. And that is the key thing. That's where they went off the rails. So this whole thing of the carbon, the Kyoto Protocol and all of that, it was basically a process of corporates commoditizing a product. And that product happened to be carbon, because it became fashionable to say, oh, it's going to save the world, it's going to save climate change and all that. So they mixed up these things, and they turned it into, then you had futures in carbon, you had carbon as a product. The whole key to understanding this whole thing, and if you look at the science behind these brilliant minds that went behind understanding why we needed to sequester carbon, they knew it. You'll find, for instance, we get a plus we get extra credits for the fact that when we're growing our trees in our...
Now, how many trees have you planted? Let's give it.
Yeah, we've planted 2 million trees so far. We've got 4 million to go. And we'll finish it within another 3 years. We'll have done 6 million trees.
This is over and above maybe the existing 10 million coffee plants. This is the fruit
Not
trees
even
added
10
for biodiversity.
And these belong to the farm.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
No, Jay, in fact, you touched on this topic of the trade union movement and how you used to galvanize them. I think a time has come in this world, especially in Africa and countries like India, where the small farmer is not only aggregated for livelihood into an enterprise like we did in Araku, but it's time that they have been aggregated to have a political voice. Because what I mean by a political voice is they are not in the debate. In India, even today, there is not a single small farmer represented in any of the public policies on agriculture.
So basically we are saying there's a political voice in the marketplace as well.
Yes.
Because right now the marketplace does not serve the poor.
Yes, no.
It's,
There is no small farmer heard in the
Yes.
market.
Yet if you aggregate them, they have a very powerful capacity to
Yes.
say this market does not just serve the rich and the affluent and the middle classes, it's got to serve the poor. In fact, it's the only sustainable way of dealing with absolute poverty in the world, the billion people today that will go to bed without a meal.
One
And
of my-
if that small farmer becomes a voice in the market, automatically becomes a voice in the political system.
Exactly, exactly.
It was one of the most striking things for me was in this process of aggregation in Article, was at a certain point 2 years ago, suddenly they realized they had a collective voice. And they were, for the first time ever, were able to go to the district authorities and say, hey, this is what we want, you keep out. And those guys were so shocked, and they said, please, you do it. Because they couldn't contend at that point, because it was a united voice, and they knew the strength of that at that point. That was the point at which we realized we'd reached a threshold of understanding that those farmers suddenly began to realize that they had power.
Now, I have invited you all to come here, to Africa, because I looked at the model and said there are large parts of the model that are replicable here. And I looked at the situation here and saw that 80% of the food in Africa is produced by women. And the woman is the centerpiece of that continuum of life, of human life, from falling pregnant, giving birth, exclusively breastfeeding, growing the food, making the choices about nutrition, investing any income they have in education and health of their children. The woman is so critical. And what's been your experience here?
No, in fact, it's a very, very important point that you raised, Jay. What we have done in this experiment in Araku is we made farmer word gender neutral. Otherwise, the moment you say farmer, it's a male. A male member of the family is the farmer idea. Whereas if you go to the field across the world, where there are small farms, the fields are full of women. What we did in Araku is told that a farmer is simply whoever is on the field. And in each family, we made them say, yes, we both are on the field. Then they said, both of you are farmers. So if we can make that transition in the minds of people, including the poor,
Yes.
that a farmer word is a gender neutral word, whoever tills the land is a farmer, then we've cracked the conundrum. Second, the moment that recognition comes to the woman, she starts beginning to raise her voices at the community level on issues related to crop choices. All the only BT cotton opportunities that you may say will be challenged by a woman who will say, give me a small patch for sorghum, give me a small patch for millet, because she gets into that negotiation. Same way, if we can aggregate them at the village level, at the society level, you find that they will also take a view on distribution of wealth also. And that collective narrative, let me tell you, Jay, you know it, will be as powerful as any other movement. Africa, if we can unite the small farmers, men and women together, to lead the road to the markets, they will ensure that Africa feeds the world.